Good morning. Happy Monday. I know you guys are all at home today, so we are going to continue with our notes. We don't want to keep bumping everything back. We've got some days off in October coming up, and just if we bump stuff back, then we might have a quiz like the day after a 3-day weekend, and we do not want to do that. So please watch this video today, and we'll finish up tomorrow. This homework that we're working on is due on Wednesday, so it shouldn't be too much trouble. If you can go ahead and grab your notes. You'll need your notes today. If you have at home a red, green, and a yellow colored pencil, that would be helpful. If you don't have one, we'll just have to kind of wing it without, so that's fine. Today is Monday, September 27th. All right. We're actually only going to do 2 problems today. We're just going to do number 11 and number 12. I think that I want to do number 12 first. It might be a little bit easier for us to follow along if we do number 12 first. But let's take a look at the directions first. Sometimes the quilt shop gets an order that turns out not to be a perfect square. Customer service always tries to fill orders with perfect squares, or at least they start there and then adjust as needed. So what's happening is this is what we have. We have these blank pieces up here, and we're going to go ahead and kind of use our coloring. As we know, we want to figure out 3 ways of expressing the area of this shape, this quilt square that's all separated into pieces. Now, we've talked before that these basic squares, our basic starting square, is always a side of X by X, and we are going to color those red. Oops, I just went outside the lines. I did have trouble in kindergarten staying inside the lines. Seriously, I did. But now I'm okay, except for that little blip. Okay, so we know that this is x squared, this is x squared, this is x squared. So together, the 3 of these guys is 3x squared. And then our single little strips here, and we always colored those strips as yellow. If you don't have colored pencils, that's okay. You can just watch me color, but then I do want you to fill in the area in the boxes as I'm writing in there in blue pen. And we know that each of these was 1x. So all together, this is 6x. And then our single little tiny itty bitty squares down here, those were always green. In each one of those was just 1 by 1 or 1 unit. And if I count those, I could write a 1 at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 of those. All right, so again, our goal here is to kind of write area in 3 ways. And one of those ways we can get right off the bat without having to do anything more. And it's just adding up all the parts here, all the bits. And we have 3x squared plus 6x plus a 10. Okay. Now, to get the other forms, what we're going to do is we're going to take these parts and we're going to go ahead and we're going to make these quilt squares. So we have this first one. So there's one of the x squared pieces. We're going to leave a little space here. There's another one of those x squared pieces, or those basic blocks, and there's another one. Now those are all the red ones. Okay, and we know that each of these was x by x. Okay, now we got to figure out how many of these yellow strips to put on. We have 3 squares to start with, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these guys. That means each of these is going to have 6 divided by 3, 2, which means we're going to have 1 on each side. So one of those 1x pieces here, and one of those 1x pieces there on each of them. Again, if you don't have the colored pencils, that's okay. Just, you can't do the coloring part, but you can still write inside the boxes or the rectangles the x squareds or the 1x's. And this is 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, now if I look at just the color of these guys, I don't have perfect squares, so we know we have to clean that off with just our little green guys up here, which is, those are 1 each. Uh-oh, so that only used up 3 of those little green guys. So we only used up 3 of these little green guys. So how many green guys are left? 1, 2, there were 10, 3, so there's 7. So I got those hanging around up here. There's 1, 2, 3. You can color these all next to each other. I think it looks kind of cool to do kind of a checkerboard pattern. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One more. 7. All right, so this is 7 of these guys over here. So we've got these 3 squares, these 3 quilt squares, and then we've got 7 of these little itty-bitty green pieces left over. So what we can do is, we know if we don't forget about these guys up here, there's plus 7, and I just look at the individual bits in here. Well, if I just look at this one right here, that's going to be x squared plus 2x plus a 1. That's all the little bits in that, inside of that one quilt square. But we know we have 3 of those guys, so we have 3 times an x squared plus a 2x plus a 1. That takes all 3 of these guys. And then we have this plus 7 hanging around out here. And that's another form that we could do. And then the last one is, if you look at the whole side, this whole side is x plus 1. And I can't write it down there, I don't have enough room. This whole side up here is x plus 1. And we have 3 of those. 3 of those x plus 1 squareds plus a 7. And there's your 3 ways of expressing area. So the first way was to add up all the bits before we started to combine them all together or make quilt squares out of them. A second way is to add up all the bits in one of the quilt squares. And then we had 3 of them, so 3, and then there's all the little bits that are inside one of the quilt squares. And then our leftovers, 7. And then the last way is to look at this as length times width. X plus 1 times x plus 1, which is x plus 1 squared. That's one of them. We got 3 of them, though. And then our extras, 7 over here. And there's your 3 ways of expressing the area. All right. If I go too fast, please feel free to pause the video, rewind it, look back again. Okay. Now let's go do number 11. Okay, so again, we have these pieces over here. So if we go ahead, we know that this is all x squared, and this is x squared. And those guys are red, so I'm going to go ahead and color those red. And then our single strips over here, these guys are all yellow, and they are size 1x each. I'm not going to write the 1x in each of them. We just know that they're 1x each. How many of them are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 12x. And here we had 2x squared. All right, now our green pieces. And how many of those do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 of those guys. All right, so now, again, if we're wanting to write 3 ways to put this as area, the first way is to add up all the bits here before we start making quilt squares. So we have 2x squared. Here's the red parts, plus the yellow, we have a 12x. And then the green plus a 13. Okay? All right, now we're going to stick these together and try and make quilt squares out of these. So let's draw our basic block first. That's x by x. It's easier if I color first, because if I write in the inside first, and then if the ink's not dry, and then I try and color on top of it, it smears the ink. Can you tell I'm a bit of a perfectionist? Just a little bit. X squared, x squared. All right, now we got to figure out how to put these yellow strips on. How many does each one get? All right, we had 12 of them to begin with, split evenly between these two. So then we know we're going to need 6 on this one and 6 on this one, which means 3 on each side. So 1, 2, 3 here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, see? Can you see the ink starting to smear there a little bit? Because it wasn't dry. That's why I don't like to write on the inside of those until I'm done coloring. I know you guys don't like to, the other day in class you wanted to stop coloring. I think this coloring is kind of relaxing. Okay? All right, now we know inside of each of those are 1x each. All right, now we got to put in our little green squares. Now you have to be careful here. This is a little bit different than the last one. So if I kind of draw them all first. Now you have to be very careful when you start coloring, because this is going to take up 9 green ones. But we only had 13 to start with. If I just used up 9 of them, then this poor quilt square over here, it doesn't have enough to complete this. It only can have 4. So we're 5 short on this one. We're 5 short. Okay, now let's think about this. How are we going to write these other expressions for area? Oops, can't see that. There we go. All right, so if we look at, remember the first one was all the bits from up here, from way up at the top, all the bits from up here. The second time is all the bits on one of them, just one of them. So if I look at all the bits just in this one, I'm going to have x squared plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6x plus a 9. We want 2 of those, so times 2. Oh, but wait, we didn't really have 9 in this second one. We were short 5, so we have to put that in there on the outside, so that's minus a 5. And then the last way is to do length times width. So this was x plus 3. That's x plus 3. So this square right here, this big quilt square, was x plus 3 quantity squared. We have 2 of those, but remember we were 5 short, so minus 5. And there's the 3 ways there. I'm just pulling out your homework. I just want to talk to you a little bit about the homework that you have that is due on Wednesday. So this is your 2-4 homework. Okay. State the y-intercept for each of the graphs, then match the graph with the equation. So remember, the y-intercept is where we cross the y-axis. So if we look at this first one, this crosses the y-axis at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at negative 5. That point right there was 0, negative 5. Okay, now Mr. Ram talked to you about this on Friday, that in finding a y-intercept from an equation, all you have to do is look at the last number, the constant that's hanging around there. So which is the only one that has a negative 5 constant, or negative 5 plain old number at the end? That would be C right down here. So 1 is C. So I did the first one for you. All right, page 2. We were doing this on Friday. Let me refresh your memory on this one. So we'll factor the 5 out of the first 2. So x squared plus 5 times 6 is 30. Okay, then we come down here. We got to figure out what goes inside of here. X plus, so remember we take half of the 6, which is 3. Then we kind of work our way back up. So 3 squared is 9. And then we do 5 times 9, 45. Okay? You can do that for 8 and 9. Number 10 is just like what I did in the notes today. So you should be able to come down here and create those squares. And you want to write, oops, not 2, but 3 equivalent equations for the area. Okay. These guys over here determine if this is a perfect square or not. These problems over here are very similar to 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so we're going to see if this works. So if this was right, actually, you know what? I'm going to have you hold off on these after Tuesday. Okay, these guys down here, evaluating the functions. Oh, this is Math 1 stuff. You're just plugging this number 1 into the f function everywhere you see an x. So f of 1 is going to be 4 times 1 squared minus 3 times a 1 minus 25. And that's going to be 1 squared is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. So we have 4 minus 3 minus 25 is 1 minus 25, or a negative 24. F of 1. Okay, now that's number 14. Don't forget to do 15. I wrote my work for 14 underneath. Don't forget to do 15. So you're going to do this again, but you're going to go to the f function, still the same function, f, plug in the 5, and evaluate. Okay? How do you know when you go to this g function? When it says go to g of 10, so for number 16, you're going to plug a 10 in here. All right? And then the rest of this homework, 2-4, day 3, the next pages, 27, 28, and 29 and 30, you can wait until after Tuesday to do those. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday. Have a good day. Bye now.